What's going on? It's your boy Sermon at Sermon's Domain on Twitter. I didn't want to do a traditional review on Frank Ocean's albums because I feel like that would just be a rush. I could have had them done this weekend and, they would have been up. But I felt like with all the time and effort that Frank Ocean put into these albums that I needed to dig deeper. I needed to do something that showed the same kind of passion that Frank puts into his music because these albums took a long time to craft and both of them are very different from each other. Currently I'm finishing up a piece about the two albums and how there's like this contrast to them. They exist on separate timelines is the argument that I'm getting at, and it's shaping up to be really good. But as I said, I didn't want to do a review, but I felt like I had to do some kind of Frank Ocean coverage. So without getting deep into all the album's inner workings, all the messages behind the music, I decided that I would just do like my favorite songs, my top 5 favorite songs off of Blond. So without further ado, let me get into it. I'll just briefly talk about each record. The first song on my list is titled White Ferrari. It's a record that producer A-Track hinted at last fall. He said it was going to come out in a couple days, and it never did. I don't know if maybe he spoiled the surprise and Frank was going to do that, because he did push back his album a week because of the New York Times leaking his date. But I was interested in this record just off the title. I mean, you got a record called White Ferrari. It sounds interesting, and I knew Frank was going to do something good with it. You have a real stripped down instrumental with crisp Frank vocals. And the one thing that I really enjoy about Frank as an artist is that he doesn't just go for this one style throughout his songs. Like, when you have these artists that craft hit singles that go on Billboard, you have a formula to follow. You got the verse, you got the hook, you got the verse, you got the hook repeated, another verse, the hook repeated. And Frank doesn't necessarily go for that on a lot of his records. He might repeat some stuff, but he's always trying to develop a different sound, a different approach to things. You might hear similar lines, but it's a beat change, or it's a different way he's saying it, a different style, and that's what I liked a lot about Blonde. The second song on my list is called Nights. I love the second half here so much. He says, every night fucks the day up, every day patches the nights up. And then he also says, want to see Nirvana but don't want to die. Like, those two lines really stood out to me, and I like the second half a lot more than I like the first half, just because in one of those rare moments Frank does use an instrumental to his advantage. I think a lot of times with these instrumentals, they're so minimal that they don't have that much of an impact. I don't know anybody that's like, yo, did you hear that new Frank Ocean? He was spazzing on this beat over here. It's like the beats are just like a backdrop for him, and they don't necessarily define his music at all, at least in my opinion. The third song on my list is called Solo. There's a triple entendre here that I wanted to discuss because I love when I'm able to just listen to some music, analyze a certain part of the song, and conclude that there's like multiple meanings to it. He says, it's hell on earth and the city's on fire. In hell, there's heaven. There's a lot to unpack with just that. The whole song is based around Frank Ocean smoking weed and getting high. So that's one interpretation of it. Inhale being like, you inhale the smoke and you go to heaven, just because there is, all this, stress and, hell on earth. There's all this hell on earth, and Frank just wants to hit the blunt one time and escape and feel free for a moment, and that's what his version of heaven is. There's also the play on words with like the city on fire and then inhale. When you inhale smoke from a fire, you're going to die. So there's that interpretation where he's like, where he's saying, you inhale the smoke, the fire smoke, and you die, and now you're in heaven. There's heaven. So there's that interpretation, and then the third one is him saying in hell there's heaven. Hell being in the literal sense, like this is the place you go if you're a bad person when you die. So he's thinking even if you're in hell, there's some form of heaven there that exists for you. And I like the whole interpretation. The whole record was great. For my fourth record, I'm going to kind of use the cheat code and do the solo reprise. And I say a cheat code because it's the only song that Frank's not on. This is Andre 3000 spitting a verse, and it's just him. With 3000 only doing verses here and there, I'm glad that he's still trying to push himself to do something different. I know this is not the first time that he's used a more rapid fire flow, but it really worked here. I like that his verse was like a representation of our generation. He's talking about the Instagram era, the social media stuff, and how he's heartbroken over the fact that rappers are using ghostwriters. And I know there's been a lot of speculation that it's about Drake, and you can't blame it with the timing, but I'm trying to look at it as this is a great Andre 3000 verse, and I don't care if he said anything about Drake because the world does not revolve around Drake. So I'm not looking at it from that point of view. I just appreciate the fact that Andre popped up once again. It's been a while since he did a guest feature, and not only that, but he's trying something new. He killed it. It makes me just really want that solo album badly. I don't know if it'll ever come, but if we keep talking about it, maybe just one day it'll happen. My last song on my top 5 is Godspeed. With Frank Ocean's magazine, Boys Don't Cry. It's out on the internet. You can probably find all of the pages, through scans. But as far as like the physical copies, they were only available at pop-up shops. They might be coming to the internet soon. Frank Ocean's mom kind of hinted at that. But one of the things that was in the magazine is how he talks about this record, Godspeed, being a reimagined part of his boyhood. One thing about Frank is that he really uses his voice as the instrument. Like, he doesn't need the instrumental, and I said that earlier. He doesn't use the instrumental as much as a lot of artists. He makes sure that his vocals are the top priority, that you understand and hear every word that he's saying. So Godspeed had to make my list just because of that. So those are my top 5 songs from Frank Ocean's Blonde. I will work on another video that kind of talks about both albums, contrasting them. And I hope whenever I do put it up that everybody is still in the mood for Frank Ocean. I know how everyone in this generation is like, okay, what's next? This Friday, Vince Staples is dropping, so everybody's going to be focused on that. But I'm going to try to put it out this week or early next week. And I hope that everybody enjoys it because I really have been putting a lot of time and effort into dissecting Frank Ocean's creativity, his art. Let me know what your favorite 5 records are from Frank Ocean's Blonde in the comment section below. And then like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, share the video. Follow me on Twitter at Sermons Domain. And as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you for watching. And until next time, peace.